Monsieur Kabash,
Mr. Kabash, advisor to the King, Prime Minister Al-Kanouch, Chair Marchenko.
President Banga, welcome to the family of the Bretton Woods institutions, and all the best to you at the helm of the World Bank. Governors, ministers, distinguished guests, mesdames et messieurs, bonjour.
Ladies and gentlemen, good day. Salam alaikum.
Let me begin by expressing my heartfelt sympathies to all those who have been affected by recent devastating disasters, including here in Morocco, and those who suffer in wars and conflicts everywhere. We hope and pray for peace. I would like to pay tribute to our host, His Majesty King Mohammed VI, the government and the people of the Kingdom of Morocco. You have shown the world the meaning of courage and resilience, as well as your exceptional culture, hospitality, and warm hearts. Marrakech, yes, thank you. Marrakech marks the return of our annual meetings to the Arab world after 20 years, and the first time in 50 years since we gathered on the African continent. Back in 1973 in Nairobi, our host, President Kenyatta, spoke of the need to find a cure for the sickness of inflation and instability that had afflicted the world. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? These challenges, in so many ways, are the same. And yet, our modern world is vastly different. It is a bigger world. There are many more people. Population has more than doubled from 4 to 8 billion. It is a richer world. Since 1973, global GDP per capita has more than doubled. It is a more diverse world. There are many more countries, and the fund's membership has grown from 125 nations in 1973 to 190 today. There have been breathtaking advances in health, education, and technology. Amazing developments, but not everyone has benefited from them. While global economic integration has helped billions of people become wealthier, healthier, and more productive, for too many, it has coincided with dislocation, poverty, and inequality. For too many, a path of progress has been rough. We have seen periods of turmoil, oil shocks in the 70s, the Latin American debt crisis, the Asian financial crisis, the global financial crisis. Just in the past 3 years, we have seen a global pandemic, war in Europe, and a cost of living crisis. The past 50 years is a story of extraordinary but disrupted progress. Also, massive shifts in the world economy. What will be the story of the next 50 years? I don't have a crystal ball, so as an experiment, I asked artificial intelligence, what might the world look like in 2073? Here is one prediction.
In 2073, a sustainable global economy will thrive, propelled by renewable energy and AI-driven industries. Space exploration could open economic frontiers, while enhanced global connectivity reshapes work dynamics. Digital currencies may become mainstream, replacing traditional financial systems. Revolutionary healthcare and cultural fusion might define the era with efforts toward economic inclusivity. The vision embraces technological progress, environmental consciousness, and a connected, equitable world. Remember, this is all speculative. Reality has a way of surprising us.
Yes, I think it is safe to say there will be surprises. The bigger question is how we will capture the benefits of transformation and manage the risks it will bring. Our starting point is not easy. As indicated in our World Economic Outlook a few days ago, the world has slowed down in terms of growth. Yes, tremendous resilience, but the recovery from the shocks is slow and uneven. Slow because at 3% growth is currently well below the average of the last 2 decades before the pandemic, and medium-term growth prospects are also the weakest in decades. Uneven because the economic scarring from the recent shocks is vastly different across countries, with emerging markets and developing countries clearly the hardest hit. After a long period of economic convergence, a dangerous divergence between countries and regions has emerged, made worse by fragmentation, climate change, and fragility, which has left many countries at the breaking point. This is especially the case here on the African continent, home of the world's youngest population. Progress in closing the income gap with more advanced economies and generating job-rich growth will be vital over the next 50 years. So in this moment of radical uncertainty, what are the no-regrets actions that will help us write a better story for the next 50 years? I will place them in 2 groups: investment in strong economic foundations and investment in international cooperation. These are captured in the Marrakech principles that the World Bank and the government of Morocco, together with the fund, announced earlier this week. First, investment in strong economic foundations. In an environment with weak medium-term growth prospects, the right policies and reforms are essential. Here in Morocco, in the areas devastated by the earthquake, it was the buildings with strong foundations and a solid structure which sustained the shocks best. The lesson is, even if faced with very different economic settings, policymakers everywhere need to build strong economic foundations through sound policies. What does that mean? Price stability is key. It is a prerequisite for growth, and it protects people, especially the poor. This means the fight against inflation remains paramount. So is safeguarding financial stability. Clearly, we are facing a higher for longer era in terms of interest rates, but a sharp further tightening of financial conditions can happen, and it can hit markets, banks, and non-banks. Therefore, strong supervision is essential. Prudent fiscal policy is more important than ever. Why? Because debt and deficits are well above pre-pandemic levels. The time has come to restore fiscal space. This means tough decisions for governments. By prioritizing spending and with credible medium-term fiscal frameworks, it can be done. Contemplating these foundational policies, we have to also think of transformational reforms to boost medium-term growth. Think of improved governance, helping to fight corruption. Streamlined regulations, making it easier to open and run business. Reforms to boost trade and improve access to capital. And increasing labor force participation, especially for women. The right package of reforms could boost output levels by up to 8% in 4 years. But the highest return of all comes from investing in people, especially education, to ready the young people, including those right here in Africa, for the jobs of tomorrow. Where will the money come from for these investments? Ajay talked a lot about that. If I had a magic wand, I would move capital from the wealthy world where population is aging to the developing world, the world of the young. But I don't. The good news is that domestic resource mobilization holds huge potential. Our research shows that tax reforms could add up to 5% of GDP in revenue for emerging markets and up to 9% for low-income countries. The fund is, and working with the bank, is prioritizing work in this area. And external financing, of course, remains critical. The advanced economies have a shared responsibility as well as shared interest in supporting the emerging markets and developing countries. This brings me to my second overarching priority, investment in global cooperation. A story of inclusive and sustainable growth for the next 50 years is only possible if we work together, again, in the spirit of the Marrakech principles. Climate and trade are obvious examples. Let me highlight two other major areas for global cooperation where the IMF is already playing an active role, again, working with the bank. First, debt. More than half of low-income countries remain in or at high risk of debt distress. About a fifth of emerging economies face default-like spreads. Yes, the common framework is starting to deliver on debt restructuring, but it is slow. We need to speed up. And the more recent Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, established by the Indian G20 presidency, the IMF and the World Bank, is bringing all relevant creditors and debtors together. It is showing results and promise for the future. Second, the global financial safety net, the lifeline for so many countries in their time of need. At the center stays the IMF. Our role is to insure the uninsured. And it has been prominent in the past 3 years. What have we done? Since the outset of the pandemic, we have provided about $1 trillion in liquidity and reserves. This came via the $650 billion SDR allocation and $320 billion in lending to 96 countries since the pandemic. So how did we do this? First, we advanced our programs, activated our programs to provide debt relief to all these countries you see on the map. Then we mobilized in record time emergency financing during the pandemic. All those countries benefited. But the shocks kept coming, and our members turned to us for full-fledged programs. All these countries have programs with the fund. We tailored our support to stronger members through precautionary credit lines. And these are the countries, including Morocco, the first and only on the African continent eligible for this instrument. And we also launched our newest instrument, the Resilience and Sustainability Trust that Chairman Marchenko mentioned. For the first time in fund's history, we provide long-term affordable resources to vulnerable low and middle-income countries. These are the first countries, 11 of them, 6 on the continent of Africa, and we have a queue of about 40. The interest is very strong. And in addition, we work with our economically stronger members to channel a significant share of their SDRs to more vulnerable members. This has so far generated around $100 billion in new financing through our trust funds, the Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust and the RST. So the fund has responded to recent shocks in an agile and unprecedented way. But with countries likely to face larger and more complex future crises, to continue to play our role at the center of the global financial safety net, we need to urgently be strengthened on 2 fronts. First, by boosting our permanent quota resources, which will bolster our capacity to support our members. Second, by replenishing the subsidies and enable the PRGT, the Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust, to provide zero interest rate loans to our poorest members. And at the same time, we must continue to work towards adapting our governance structure to better represent you, our membership, as changes in the economy, in the global economy take place. We now have a possibility to add a 3rd chair for Africa from 2 to 3 on our executive board, and it is a welcoming step. And I heard Mr. Kabash talking about more representation for Africa. I'm very hopeful. Tomorrow we have our meeting, IMFC meeting. I'm very hopeful for support for these very important developments. We, the IMF, have strength that is fundamentally based on your trust, on the trust of our 190 members. How do we gain your trust? With the work of the magnificent staff of the fund. I'm asking staff of the fund to stand up. They work tirelessly, day and night, in the office and at home, to repay this trust. I could not be more proud of them. My deepest appreciation to my colleagues in the senior management team. Everybody sits, only senior management stands. Okay, senior management, a round of applause for them. And to our executive board members are somewhere in the room. I don't want to embarrass them because they may be running with delegations to meetings. Not going to ask you to stand up. We draw tremendous strength from our partnership with our sister institution, the World Bank. And I want to thank Ajay and the staff of the bank for it. Thank you. We are working together for you and for a better future for our people. I want to conclude by quoting some lines from a Malhoun poem, which I saw during my visit to the Museum of Jamal Fina Square. Go and contemplate the wall of Marrakech the Red. Your heart will find peace. There is then no closed door to which you will not find the key. Our meetings here in Marrakech the Red leave me in no doubt that together we will unlock the door to opportunities for the next generation. Merci. Shukran.